we might hit pause there on the technical details. It's probably enough of an onslaught. And migrate to then was a very exciting event for us, which was being able to launch and report the first Tasmanian farmers who've gone through that registration and baselining process of an ERF soil carbon project. And so look, we're really excited to be working with Steph and Sam Trethewey. So I might throw to them just for some background insight on their motivations to participate in a carbon project and to create soil carbon credits through better management of soil. So Steph, enough from me, over to you.
Thanks so much, Matthew. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be on here and really excited at how much AgriProve is sort of investing in Tassie. Really exciting for producers here. Before I throw to Sam, who will delve into, I guess, the more production side of things and our, the specifics of our own project, I just wanted to give a brief intro to TasAgCo for those who don't know. So we're grass-fed, we run grass-fed Wagyu and we farm regeneratively, which is, I suppose, where the whole carbon project comes in for us. Sam and I started this business a couple of years ago as just an idea, and I'm really excited to be back on his home turf actually doing it. And my background is not in farming, so I'm from a brand and marketing background. I spent about 7 or 8 years working as a TV journalist across the country and fell in love with the farmer, fell in love with ag, and have subsequently fallen in love with regenerative agriculture. So just quickly, in terms of the opportunity for producers, whether you're a brand or just producers in general, is there's a lot of research coming through and a lot of data coming through about the changes in consumer perceptions, the changes in consumer behaviours, and there's no doubt about it. We're seeing an increasing number of environmentally conscious consumers, whether you like it or not. That's sort of where the world is really heading, and it's been great validation for us as a business to know that the work we're doing now, which is really early days, having just registered the project recently, is just the beginning, but it's sort of where the market's going to head for a particular portion of consumers. So it's really good validation for us. We're seeing organisations like the NFF, they just recently announced their biodiversity certification program. So we're seeing a lot of movement in the space, and we're really excited to be early adopters. We're really excited to be working with AgriProve. It's not, I know Matthew talked about, there's a lot of compliance and a lot of paperwork, but for us so far, it's been a really, really smooth, easy journey. So it's a no-brainer. And as I said, I'm not the farmer, I'm the brand and marketing brain. So I will throw to Sam, who can, I guess, speak more about, boots on the ground, what impact it's having on our productivity and, the opportunity for farmers. So I'll just do a quick swap with him.
Cool, thanks, Steph. All right, so jump into the nuts and bolts, the farming stuff. So we've got about 650 acres here. We run around 800 head, and we should be tripling that in the next 18 months. So we were definitely aiming for a high output system, and it's just managing those inputs. I suppose we're not a traditional high input system as far as the conventional system would have it. We, I suppose, changing things up there. As Steph said, we're kind of going down the regenerative path, and I myself have spent over 15 years farming around the mainland and overseas. Not a whole lot of which has been around the regenerative scene. So I've certainly cut my teeth and done my time in other farming systems. And so kind of it's been very effective at getting my head around what we want to achieve and what we don't want to do with our new business. So background on me. So yeah, as I said, I've worked all over after I left Tassie. Grew up in a farming family in Tassie, but didn't farm here specifically, but have certainly done that on the mainland. And Dad was actually one of the first guys to do the RCS Terry McCosker course in, I think, 1984 or 1985. And so he's done 3 farm conversions over the years, and I've seen him focus on building carbon through regenerative grazing practices. Not because, of course, he could trade those credits. It was all about increasing water holding capacity and nutrient density, and that equated to better kilos of beef or wool or lamb produced per hectare. And then having spent my time working on lots of different farms, plus I did some contracting. I've probably worked on, 50 plus farms around Australia. So you soon work out who does things well and who doesn't. And the guys that focused on true soil health, and I'm not talking about the soil health that tell you about. I'm talking true focus on organics, not organics, but organic carbon and things like that. They're the guys that were still farming in a conventional system, but they had a green tinge in drought. We were trading lambs and others were shooting them down the road. So for me, I saw some big signs around the opportunity to focus on carbon, which I have to say, having grown up and around the sector, jackarooing, the modern farming system doesn't really spend a lot of time on carbon. It spends its time on other nutrients, as we know. And so carbon for me has been the focus. And then, of course, with Steph and our business getting into consumer markets, it's just been an absolute no-brainer. So our carbon position, just quickly. So since World War II, we've come into this conventional farming system, and we've generated and grown enormous amounts of food. We've also lost trillions of tons of carbon, and so we have a lot of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere from obviously fossil fuels, coal, and other things like that. So I suppose as an opportunity, we have an enormous amount of carbon in the atmosphere that we can pull down, and nitrous oxide, free fert, and other things like that. So for me, that's kind of where we're situated. One other quick thing. So I wanted to make it really clear that there's a difference between organic material and organic matter. So people think that, your stubble and lots of mulch is really great because you're putting carbon in the soil. It's not as simple as that. Organic material is stubble, it is mulch. For it to be turned into organic matter, microorganisms need to break that down and turn it into humus. That's about a 10-to-1 ratio. So for every 10 kilos of organic material, if you've got good microbial action, that can get turned into 1 kilo of humus, so you can actually create soil, which, if you think about it, it's what most gardeners do, right? But on farm, it's generally a little bit different. So I just wanted to kind of explain that, and of course, anyone that's read a soil test will know there's 3 types of carbon. You've got your slow and inert pools of carbon, which is where we want to focus. That's the stuff that we get measured on. It is my understanding, and that's where you want to head. Labile carbon is that more volatile organic material kind of based carbon measurement. And so, yeah, just wanted to mention that. I suppose, therefore, the way we sequester carbons through management, and I've seen a few questions come back in, and AgriProve aren't prescriptive with the way they build out the land management plans. It's up to you with where you want to head. But the reality is that there has to be some changes on farm as to, business as usual, or what many of us, not all of us, but many of us have been doing in farming the way we have. Because the way we traditionally farm, to be completely upfront in a conventional system, that system is not conducive to sequestering carbon. And I can talk about that more later, but it's not a carbon-focused farming system. And so we do need to change some things. Now, you can do it like we have, go whole hog, 100 kilometres an hour and go straight in and do it all, or you can just do it in little chunks and pieces until it adds up and makes sense and then integrates and changes the way you manage. So working with AgriProve, just so it's clear, so you're clear, rather, we're not getting paid by AgriProve or anything like that for any of this. I was working in agricultural technology or ag tech in Melbourne for a couple of years before this, and I suppose when it came to the carbon market, just like the ag tech market, it's full of lots of newcomers and people with lots of promises that don't deliver, and people that are focused more on the technology than actually solving problems. And so for me, AgriProve ticked a few boxes. So firstly, the support that they've offered us from a management point of view. Now, we built our own, I suppose, farm management plan, but they're kind of alongside us as a partner, which has been really great because it is very complex. As Matthew said, it's very convoluted and confusing. And that leads me on to my next point, is that's really, as a farmer, has been kept away from us. AgriProve do all the compliance work. They manage all the the legislative requirements and changes and tweaks and things that need to be done. So much so they've actually built an online platform which makes the whole integration of your farm management plan and farm map and project area and everything very, very easy. I hate paper. I do everything online and on the cloud. And so it's great that they've been building that platform to help manage things like that. And then just lastly, I would also argue that in my experience, there's a lack of sophistication in the carbon market, I felt, and AgriProve have really brought that corporatization and sophistication. They're very professional to deal with, great communicators, easy to get along with. And so, yeah, it's been a really enjoyable partnership. So that's kind of why we're really keen on going with them. So getting into the technical aspects of our actual project, So project area, as you would have seen on the screen earlier, the farmers basically carved out into sections. Obviously, rocky faces of bits of paddocks, roads, houses, dams. Those are areas that you can't sequester carbon in, so they're excluded from the project area. So if you've got a 300 or 400 hectare farm, you may only kind of, your project area as such, maybe 80% of that or 90% of that, depending on the farm. If I had my time again, I would have brought the project boundaries in, which reduces the hectares that are in the project, but the way in which the dig spots are generated is completely computer generated by an algorithm at random. And so I, of course, was trying to get the project area out as much as I could, because it's more area, which means, I can generate more carbon credits. But of course, the computer's then gone and put a few dig spots like right under a boundary fence. And as we know, right under a boundary fence isn't, I suppose, subject to the exact kind of management practices that you would do, perhaps other than 3 meters in that boundary fence. So had I had my time again, I would have brought it in a little bit. But yeah, so essentially that's it. And those digs are random. And then again, when you re-baseline in a few years, again, those dig spots are completely random and generated again. So therefore, there's a completely objective of way of measuring the increase in carbon across the whole farm, which for us was really important. Like Matthew said, some people don't do these carbon projects for income, and we haven't. We are heading down the path of becoming hopefully one of the first truly carbon positive beef brands in Australia, maybe the Southern Hemisphere, by building a whole heap of data that we're happy to share with everyone around everything that we do, from a commercial business point of view, from a on-farm productivity, kilos of beef produced per hectare, through to our soil health and our increases in our operating environment. So for us, it was about having a bulletproof system that stands behind our carbon claims and other things that we're going to be doing that will come out in the future. And so just lastly, our management plan mostly consists of, to our choice, time control grazing. So at times we have to be a bit loose, as we all know, with our grazing. But, and I've grown up in cell grazing systems. So I've converted about 6 farms myself in my short career. Cells, time controlled, whatever you call it. The reality is you're moving animals based on grass and environment, not on what animals do or don't need, which often can conflict with actual animal management stuff. But so that's one piece. And the second piece is the multi-species stuff. And I just want to quickly touch on this. But essentially, very, very simple. You need 1 or 2 of each group. So you need at least 1 cereal, 1 brassica, I would say at least 2 legumes, due to their pull down nitrous oxide and chuck nitrogen in your soils. Brassica, cereal, grass, and and your legume. And then also, if you can get a quinopod, and no one really knows much about them, but they are another type of plant. And they're pretty hard to get for Tassie environment, but that just creates a real diversity. And essentially what you're doing there, and I'm not going to get all greeny on you, but you're mimicking what Mother Nature does. Is she always has enormous amounts of diversity in any natural ecosystem. Industrial agriculture has seen us get rid of all that, and we put in monocultures or perennial rye and clover. And so by pulling back in multiple species, they all interact and do different things together. And in that process, they leave organic material in the ground. And due to the complexity of relationships through those plants, we stimulate and enable worms and microbiology, which then break down that organic material into organic matter, which is what we get paid on. And there's actually also a liquid form of carbon that no one knows a whole lot about, called exudates, and it's like a gooey grey substance that roots push out into the soil, that feeds and stimulates microbes, which in turn unlock nutrients in the soil and then make them available for the plant. There is also a fair bit of research to suggest that contributes to your carbon sequestration, the rate of exudates. And that exudates increases as the more species you have, because they all work together and do their thing. I've probably taken up too much time. I'm nearly done. And the last piece is just enabling that biology. So I've worked on big conventional cropping programs where we've cropped, 2,000-3,000 hectares, wheat, barley, canola, sorghum, all that stuff. And the reality is that the soils have got about as much microbiology in them as a bloody plastic bag, and that's just the way we farm. And you know, I don't mean to be polarizing with that, but it's true. It is absolutely true. And so I suppose this whole system is about enabling that microbiology, and the way we do that is we reduce or eliminate or dramatically take out tillage. And then of course I won't go down the pesticide type argument, but that stuff's it's pretty black or white. It knocks around a lot of our biology. So the more chemicals we use, the more synthetic fertilizers we use, the harder we hit our microbiology, which means the less carbon we can sequester through the decomposition and digestion of organic material into organic matter. So this is not a speech about how to become a regenerative farmer. It's about how to sequester carbon. But as a part of the process of becoming a carbon farmer, management techniques that are kind of more conducive to work alongside Mother Nature instead of against her are going to have to come into play. So I'm going to leave my little speech now and back to Matthew.